Hello and welcome to Talk Talent to Me podcast channel, hosted by Hoyamal Recruitment. We speak to businesses in the Middle East about their journeys and the importance of identifying and cultivating talent to drive success. Today we speak to Ben Edwards from Ignite Training. Based in Dubai, Ben provides corporate training to some of the region's leading businesses. With a core focus on mental health, Ben speaks to leaders and their teams about the importance of positive mental well-being and its effects on performance. In this episode, Ben gives us useful tips as leaders to improve mental well-being in our businesses, specifically during the COVID-19 lockdown period. Ben, hi, how are you doing?
I'm very well, John. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for being with us today. I like your background there with the hashtag Hoyamal.
Well, yes, you've got to add everything in. So I was watching videos over the last couple of weeks, doing a lot of these face-to-face. So, it's always important to have decent things in your background. So it's nice to see, your picture at the back
Fantastic.
there. Is that your 500,000 members? Is it 50,000? What is it?
Yeah, that was just a little award we got. Don't worry about it.
It's a little. So, good background. So, we just try to throw a few things on to make it
Good
relevant.
stuff. Great. So, look, as I said to you, I've pre-recorded something where we've introduced you and what you cover at Ignite Training and the fantastic work you do with various businesses across the Middle East. Today, we wanted to really speak about how we can deal with the COVID-19 crisis from a business point of view, particularly with how we can give leaders tips and tricks where they can lead successfully through remotely. And particularly looking at the mental health part as well in terms of their employees and how they can identify mental health issues or potential mental health issues and essentially mitigate that moving forward. Again, remotely it's going to be very difficult than it would be face to face.
Certainly.
So I know this is your expertise. So yeah, I just want to kind of speak for you at the moment, speaking to various businesses. Is this a massive challenge? What are people doing?
Yeah, well, I think the thing is for everyone, it's completely new, isn't it? Most companies might have some form of remote working, and those teams that do work in that capacity have a reasonably good way of managing that, and that's because they've had time and experience to learn from that. Most of us now, in the UAE, we're probably going through a month now, coming up to like week 4.
Yeah.
So businesses and companies are still in this form of learning and trying to understand what works best. And because we've never faced anything quite like this before, there's no kind of true way to do it. There's no tried and tested means to go, this is how you should do it. So all we can do at the moment is just look at what potentially is working currently and then kind of pass on some of that info to see if we try it, test it, and if it does work, great. And we'll have something to move forward. But, having people constantly having to be at home, not having any sort of way to get out in a working world, really, unless you're kind of one of the kind of key workers, you're still managing to get out. There's not much chance for people to do things what they normally do. So it's a lot of adjustment, not just for companies, but also the employees as well. So it's quite difficult to put it all into a full perspective. But we can talk about some of the things today and see what we can do.
Yeah, and I think a massive part, what I'm seeing speaking to clients and candidates is there's various levels of anxiety from a macro level. How can this affect our lives in the long term? And then on the kind of more micro level, their jobs and their day-to-day lives here in the Middle East, for us in Dubai. This is going to create a lot of anxiety and stress. So I guess it is their employers. Their employees need to be helping deal with that.
Definitely. And I think it's, you used a good word there about anxiety. And, when we hear anxiety, sometimes we immediately think of potentially the mental health condition. And that's when we start talking about anxiety disorders. But anxiety is something natural that everyone experiences. So it's great for us to talk about it and say, you will feel anxious. It's kind of an extension on stress, and stress can be good for us most of the time. There's different types of stress. There's eustress or euphoric stress. So that's kind of the stress that we get when we're doing something that might excite us. If you go for a bungee jump or a skydive, you might get that initial adrenaline rush where you feel quite good. You're a little bit fearful, but then when you do it, you feel great. And then we've got distress, which is kind of the negative stress that we experience. And I think a lot of people now are experiencing some of that distress, where it's kind of fear of the unknown, not knowing what's going to happen next. And there's no kind of true way to just go, oh, this is how you stop people from worrying. People will worry, people will stress. But quite right, what you said there is there are kind of ways in which we can help people reduce that stress ever so slightly. And employers need to be aware of what those things are, as well as the employees need to know what they are so that they can implement them to hopefully reduce some of that, so they're not overly fearful, overly stressed, leading to potential further anxiety about the potential issue that we're facing at the moment.
Okay. So for some of the millions of people watching this, or 5 people watching this, what if they're leaders of, it could be massive businesses, it could be a small five-man business, what are some of the things that they can implement?
I think one of the major things that's going to have such an impact on people is being connected. So what seems to go out the window with remote working is people feel that it's okay to then text or just email, because they're not physically in the same environment.
Yeah.
It's just easy to go, I'll just fire a text or a WhatsApp, or I'll just fire an email over to them. But now we're in this situation where it's even more important for us to have some visual connection. So having this with you now is great.
Yeah.
If you imagine if I was talking to you and my screen was blank, you might get that picture that you saw earlier when it's a bit more.
It's great, to be fair.
It'll be strange, I'll show it now, just so if it was just me like this behind a desk, it loses that disconnect. There's not the same feeling that we get from seeing someone. You can't see my facial expressions. You can't see if, even though I'm speaking, am I quite sad in the face, or am I smiling, am I quite upbeat? You can't see those things, and you might be able to hear some of the kind of micro expressions through their tone of voice, but we really need to have this kind of connection where use things like Zoom, WebEx, whatever, Microsoft Teams a lot of companies are using. Get on them more, make the effort to actually be in physical, kind of not physical contact, but virtual contact with that with that person. I've said on quite a few of my webinars that I've done for Ignite that I'm really frustrated with the term social distancing, because we shouldn't be socially distant. We should be physically distant to obviously prevent the what's the word?
The spread of the virus.
Spreading. But we shouldn't be socially distant. We should still be as socially close as we can. And at the moment, this is how close we can get to someone else, to be socially with them, and it gives us a bit of a mood boost when we've seen someone's face, when we've been able to communicate in that way. Just communicating over the phone or on a text, it's so impersonal, and that's what just adds to people's kind of low moods in this situation. God, I haven't seen anyone for ages, or all the people that I've seen is my partner, family, and as much as it's lovely to see them, and people are seeing them more so now than what they probably ever have, it's not the same as being in touch with those people on a daily basis. So if you're a small business like ours at Ignite, we have daily briefings every morning where we just go on Zoom, we all have our webcams on, we have a chat about what we're going to do that day, how yesterday went, and it just adds something to your day where you can actually reflect on what you've done. So you feel quite positive about the kind of tasks that you've completed. Even if you haven't completed everything, the team are there to kind of help and support you. So you get that kind of uplift. If you're a, multinational company, then it's down to your managers to manage each team that they're responsible for. I'm not talking about every director and CEO has to speak to every single employee that they have there. But certainly those managers managing teams need to have this connection with their team members to just at least keep some kind of social connection.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do here at Hoyamal. And again, we're a relatively small business, but what we do is we sit down every morning like this, and I know you talk about this as well, is have kind of goals, set goals, and I think you call them rocks in your world, where you can, things that you are going to achieve that day, and it might be small things, but it's important to have some kind of structure. And
Definitely.
again, it's the leaders need to set that from the outset, and that contact over the virtually is great. But at the end of the day, we're catching up with the guys as well. So how did you get on? And it's not to say, right, why didn't you do this? It's just to say, right, okay, you've got a bit of ownership about the structure of your day. Otherwise, you could just sit around and watch Netflix all day, which I bet you a lot of people are doing. But this could go on for months and months. So I think it's really important for leaders, no matter if you're in sales, in tech, in finance, you need to make sure that you're on top of this and work this into your day, because it's going to add value.
Definitely. It's one of the easiest ways to do it. And it takes time out of our day. But, honestly, I think most companies probably have got that little bit of extra time. And if you feel you don't have that time, then I'd get you to reassess the value that you're going to get from giving that time. Because, you sitting on your laptop just trying to fire out a report that's still due, yes, of course it adds value, but is it going to add as much value as making sure that your team are kind of supported, feel like they've kind of reflected with someone, talked to someone, and feel kind of motivated throughout their day? Because the less motivation they get, the less social contact they get, I guarantee that their productivity is going to fall as well. So they're not going to be as productive as you expect.
Definitely. And so what can employers do then to help? What are the kind of questions they should be asking? What are the frameworks that they should be implementing that could help?
It's interesting. So, we're doing a lot of work now with mental health. So we've got a couple of courses that we run, and one of the key ones that we have is originated from the UK. And what it really kind of points out is, especially in an area here in the Middle East, mental health is not looked upon as positively. It has a bit more of a negative connotation. So even just to ask you now, John, like what's your understanding of mental health? Just to put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, I guess I'm not thinking necessarily as a negative thing. I think perhaps I used to think, mental health, straight away I'm thinking of a negative connotation, but it's the health of your mental state, whether it's low, high, or at just normal. So that's how I think about it. To sit on the fence, really. It's not really a great answer.
Well, you're kind of pointing out the right thing. It's like when I say this to people, and I say mental health, and they go, "Oh yeah, anxiety, depression, things like that."
Yeah.
And then I go, "What's physical health?" And they go, "Oh, that's when you're quite fit, you're healthy." And it's like, why is there a difference there? Why is mental health the negative? So I'm glad that you kind of said that. It's the state of mind that you have, and it's your ability to handle your emotions and be more resilient. And it's something that's built over time. You're not just born with a superly easy way to create a healthy mind all the time. You have to learn some techniques. And one of the things that we need to do first is educate people about what mental health is. So yes, mental health is keeping a sound mind, just like it is a sound body, and they work in harmony. If you've got poor mental health, it's more likely that you will experience poor physical health, because experiencing some of those difficult times with your mental health means that you might not be as nutritious as you're supposed to be. You might not be as physically active as you're supposed to be. And then in reflection of that, or kind of vice versa, if you're not physically active because you're impeded in some way, that can also lead to kind of low moods because you're not able to do the things that you would normally do. So they really work in harmony. So one of the first things we do is make sure that people are fully aware of that mental health is actually a positive thing that we should all embrace, but we have mental ill health or mental health conditions that impact that. And then we need to understand what some of those are. So the key ones that are always bandied about, I think we've kind of touched on them briefly, is anxiety and depression. They're the biggest mental health conditions, In most of the Western world, mental health conditions are one of the biggest chronic illnesses that people experience. So I think it's only like, I think it's heart conditions, cardiovascular issues that are the only thing that is higher than mental health currently.
Wow.
That impact people. So it is serious, and it's something that needs to be embraced. Share my screen with you now. 5 key aspects of making sure that people do have good well-being. So I did want to show it here as one of the key things to say, like, loads of places do this. The NHS has 5 steps to well-being. Australia, New Zealand all embrace these as well. But yeah, it's giving back. So I know that's quite difficult at the moment, but, you know, do you know of people in your community that are struggling to get out? You know, can you go out on their behalf, getting a permit, of course, but then, you know, leave some things for them on their doorstep so that they're kind of helped and supported. So at this moment in time, we can feel better about our own well-being by giving back to community. Taking notice of the things around you. So this is like being mindful. So when we hear mindful, we're kind of pigeonholed into this thing of, oh, it's mindfulness. It's, you know, we have to listen to someone talk about our body meditation. It's not, it's just about being in the moment. And mindfulness activities help that because you're more focused on what your body's doing, you know, whether it's about breathing, how you feel your, the backs of your legs are on your seat right now. You know, focusing on those things takes people away from all the other thoughts that might be going in and out of their mind at the moment, you know, the past, the future. So just being more aware of the physical moment helps. Keep learning. So again, we've got these opportunities now where we can do things differently. You know, lots of companies are offering free things. You know, we're offering free webinars, just give some tasters. You've got LinkedIn Learning that is giving some free elements now. Harvard are offering some free courses. Coursera is doing loads. So there's loads of places where you can direct your employees, or if you are an employee, find it yourself, to, you know, learn something new. And I started doing a bit of baking over the last couple of weeks. It's not as successful, but it's something. It kind of makes you feel good when you complete something different. Yeah. You know, my wife and I are trying to learn different games while we're kind of stuck in the house. So we've learned how to play backgammon. We've learned how to play a few different board games. One called Nine Men Morris, which is a bit weird, but, you know, we're just trying to we wouldn't normally do just to keep ourselves active, and that kind of lifts us. Connect, we've already talked about, you know, make sure that you're on. And what I would say about connecting as well is with this, have your webcam on. You know, loads of people are just thinking, oh, do you know what, I'll stay in bed, I'll just like keep my pajamas on all day. That's not going to be good for your well-being. You know, you need to try and keep some form of routine where you still get up, you get your shower, you get dressed, because it just makes us feel like we're in a different kind of setting rather than just being chilled at home. So when you do connect, use your webcam, because then people can see you, we can see what expressions we're making.
Yeah, I think with that as well, I think is having a space somewhere in where you live that is your workspace, and beginning your day there and ending your day there. Shut your laptop at the end of the day. You know,
yeah, definitely,
and then finish the day like you would leave work. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, I did a similar thing on my virtual productivity and time management free course yesterday, where it was, you know, create a kind of space. And, you know, not all of us have luxury of having, you know, millions of rooms in our house where we can go to all different places. But even if it's the sense of, I use the example of, even if you have to work at your dining table because it's the only space, if you're going to sit at your dining table later at night to eat tea, sit at a different chair so you don't feel like you're sitting in the chair that you've done work in today. Sit somewhere else. Just keep that space separate. So like you said, you know, close your laptop, keep it to one side, make sure that you segregate that. So yeah, that's definitely a key point there. And the last one is be active. So, you know, don't give me the excuse to say you can't do anything. You know, even if it's a case of running up and down some stairs, it's a bit of activity. You know, the French guy that ran a marathon on his balcony. There's a guy,
amazing.
I can't remember where he was from, where he climbed Mount Everest by just going up the stairs in his building.
Yeah.
So there are things that you can do to stay active, even if it's, throwing on YouTube and doing a yoga session or a HIIT training session, whatever, circuits, anything. There's so many things that you can still do. We all think, oh yeah, it'll be a great idea, I'll do that, but we just don't force ourselves to do it. So, you made the great statement before about having goals. You need to make sure that you've got something that you're going to aim for. I've kind of just set it over the last weekend to lose like 1 stone, 7 kilos, in the next 6 weeks, hoping it kind of ties in Ramadan. So, that's kind of keeping me active, because I'll have to do some kind of workout. Being a little bit better with myself, because I'm going to have to eat healthily. So I'm kind of being more mindful in what I eat. I'm going to learn new things to cook, so that's going to keep me learning. And you know what? I might even throw Connect, because I might make sure that I speak to some of my friends and family and ask them for their best recipes. So I'm connecting that way. So just by doing something like that, setting a simple goal as losing weight, I can already hit 4 of those 5 steps to well-being. So as a business, think about things that you can do that hits these elements of well-being. And it's just because we're in a state of remote working now doesn't mean that we can't do them. We just need to think a little bit differently.
Yeah, and as a leader, you can actually drive these, and you should be setting these. I know some businesses that are doing all of these. They're doing different learnings. They're doing virtual yoga every morning. They're making sure they're staying connected with the meetings that we discuss. They're doing some charity stuff together.
Right.
All these kinds of things can be set by a leader, and it actually make your team more productive. So it's thinking about, I know this is done by your wife who's a teacher, but actually these are things that everyone should be doing and can implement. And I think it's a bit of an afterthought normally, but now personally I think it's as important as ever to be doing these. They look like simple things, but a little bit of time, put them into them, put some time into them, and you'll reap the benefits.
Definitely. And, just to touch on one of your things there about like leaders should be kind of setting these, I would encourage leaders to engage with their staff as well, because the staff might have really good ideas. The employees might
100%.
have really, so, people get more buy-in, feel more motivated when they've had a say in something. So as much as it's great to just go, right, this is an idea I've got, I want everyone to do this. As a leader, flip it a little bit and just say, I've got an idea to do something that's going to help us with our well-being. What I'd like to do is just see what you guys have got. Have you got any ideas of how we can do this? And what you might find is that they say some of the similar things to you, and you can go, great, I've had similar ideas. Don't say that's my idea. I've had ideas. How can we put this together? And if they take ownership and they run it, they're going to be much more motivated to do it, rather than you just, this is what we're going to do.
100%. Again, how you can identify some of these anxiety and stress levels, asking the right questions. I'm quite interested in that from a leadership point of view, even for my team.
Yeah, so one of the easiest things to do is just get your staff to complete a short questionnaire. So if you look online, there's lots of different questionnaires that are used. Some of the best ones for the likes of stress or potential anxiety is a simple mood scale. So it might be a mood scale from -5, which is a negative mood, to 0, neutral, to +5, a positive mood. And on a daily basis, just get your team to track how they're feeling. Usually it has to be at the same time every day, so you get a good idea of what might be going on. Because, if you do it at the end of the day, everyone might feel in a bit of a positive mood because the day's finished for them. So make sure that you keep it at a key point of the day, so that the tracking that you do is right. And that just allows you to see if someone is in a potential negative mood. That means that you have to intervene. So as a leader, you need to kind of speak to them and find out what's going on. So I'll do some key questions in a minute. The perceived stress scale is a good one for stress. So that's either a 4 or 10 part questionnaire. And again, if you look into the kind of scoring mechanisms of them, because, like some of those questionnaires where you kind of read the statement and you circle the box, some of them are 1 to 5, but some of them are 5 to 1. So you have to kind of work and add them up. So do have a look at those if you can, and they help just to understand what people's perceived stress is. And the key point of that is perceived stress. So you might look at what they're doing and go, how can they be stressed about that? But you're not them. You might have a different state of emotional well-being, emotional intelligence than them. So always remember that you can't force how you feel about the situation on someone else. It's their feeling, it's their emotion. Yeah. You've got to kind of embrace that.
It's probably something that you don't think of straight away, or you think about it to that level. Yeah, you might not perceive it as being stressful, but actually you don't know what they're feeling at all. You don't know behind the scenes what's going on with them and their personal lives. On that as well, about doing the questionnaires, which I think is great, or some kind of measurement. You said kind of every day. Anyone listening to this who leads a team, no way they're going to be doing that every day. What about kind of weekly, monthly?
Of course, yeah, you can do it. You can do it weekly as well. I think the thing with doing it initially daily is just to try and see, throughout a week, what is that person experiencing? And, if you look at it over 5 days and you go, do you know what, 3 out of those 5 days, they've been in a negative mood. So again, I need to have a conversation. If you're doing it weekly, before you've got any sort of tracking to go, oh, they seem to be in a constantly negative or potentially positive mood. The time has passed quite a lot. So initially it's good to do it a day, and it's not like you need to keep a close eye on it. Give that responsibility to your employees as well, and just go, look, I'd like you to do this every day, because this just helps us understand what we might need to do to help and support you. You're not necessarily asking employees to say exactly what it is, and if everyone seems to be in a positive mood, great. If you have a weekly catch up with them, just call it out and just go, right, I got your mood questionnaires back. Everyone seems to be in a positive mood. What's happened this week that's kept you in a positive mood? And as a leader, then you're keeping everyone in that positive mood. You're sharing that everyone is feeling good. But then if there's negativity, again, you can address that as a group, but more importantly, you need to go back to each individual that's feeling that way and see what you can do. And what's important about asking those questions is stay open with those questions. So make sure that you're using the simple open questions as who, what, when, where, why, how, because they elicit more of a response from people. If you want to use the best type of question for understanding people's feelings, mood, etc., then I'd go with what we call TED questions. So that is T, tell me. So tell me what's making you feel this way at the moment. And because we say tell, we immediately think of like, tell me a story. So we feel like we need to give quite a lot of information to do that. E is explain. So explain what's happened this week to make you feel this way. Because we've said explain, we think back to school where explain meant that we had to say quite a lot of things, pros and cons maybe sometimes. So again, it just makes people say more. And the last one is D, and that's describe for me. So describe for me more about the feelings that you're experiencing. Describe what's making you feel this way. And again, because we're saying describe, it makes the people answering give more information rather than just, if you say, oh, what's wrong? And they just got this. So again, using kind of tell me, explain to me, describe for me are really good ways to kind of elicit good responses from people. And I'm not saying that they're going to work all the time. People, if they are feeling quite protective of themselves, which again is natural, they might give you limited responses. But as a leader, show that person that you're going to be there for them. If you don't know much about empathy, get yourself onto YouTube and look for a video clip from Brené Brown on empathy. It's a great video. It's about 3 minutes long. It just clearly states what you should be doing for empathy and comes out with like 4 key qualities. So asking the right questions, being empathetic to their situation, and just going back to what I mentioned before with the perceived stress scale, remember that whatever they explain, that's their feel, that's their perception about it. You're not going to have the same one. So you need to make sure that you kind of remove that judgment that you're likely to experience, because we all do. Oh, why are you stressed about that? Who gets stressed about that? This person gets stressed about that. So you need to understand why and what you can do to support. So the final questions that I'd be looking for a leader to do once they've kind of explored the issue is kind of throw it back to the person and go, what can we do to support you? And the key is we, because you want to do something as a leader, but you want to ensure that that person takes some responsibility as well, because you're not there to solve their problems, you're there to kind of help them through. And if you do feel that anything comes out that could be more of a serious mental health problem, remember that you're not there to diagnose. So you're not there to go, this sounds like you're having an anxiety disorder or a depressive issue. You're not there to do that. You can't diagnose. You've not got the skill set. I haven't got the skill set. I've dealt with mental health and well-being for 6 years now, 6-7 years. There's no way I could ever be in that state where I could diagnose. So always it's just about, this sounds like you're going through a difficult time. What can we do to support you? Have you thought about speaking to someone else? If your business does have mental health insurance, which again is a tricky thing over here, not everyone does, but can you utilize that? As a leader, try and break down that stigma to just go, look, this is not a bad thing to use that. If you don't have mental health insurance, then it's a little bit more difficult. There is still places out there that you can go. They are a little bit costly in the grand scheme of things, but I go back to what we were discussing earlier, physical health, mental health. You probably wouldn't think twice if your kind of arm was hanging off to go to the hospital and get that fixed. And if you had to pay more than what you expected, you would do that. Your mental health is just as important. And if it's not dealt with appropriately, it can have serious effects on you in the future. So make sure that you don't see it as it'll pass. You need some help and support.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm guessing at this time with the COVID-19 outbreak is that what you would hope that any stress or negative mental health would be more acute, really. It would be, okay, this is affecting me now. I'm a bit worried perhaps about my job, or again, as I said earlier, being away from home. And it's what you said about communicating, keeping people up to date with what's happening within the business. If there's potential that something may be affected with your role, when would that be? What does that look like? And making sure that two-way conversation is happening, because I'm guessing that is a massive issue for employees at the moment, no matter how big or small the business.
Yeah, and probably because most businesses don't know what they're going to do. Then I'd say, as a business, be honest about that. And everyone knows these are unprecedented times. So even coming out as a business and just going, look, we don't necessarily know what the best thing to do at the moment is. We're working hard to make sure that the best is looked for our employees, etc. This, that, and the other, whatever you need to say, again, being as transparent as you can. That's going to mean more to your staff members than just to be quiet or just go, oh, don't worry, we're looking at stuff. Just give some explanation, because that's going to help. There's always going to be people out there. There's always going to be people in your business that see the negative side of it. But I'd much rather have a smaller percentage of my employees feeling a bit negative than everyone potentially feeling negative because they don't know what's going on at all.
Yeah, I agree. I'm speaking to candidates at the moment who they haven't been told. It's all hearsay. It's all rumors throughout the business. They haven't been told what's happening, and they're so stressed about that. And that's why they're speaking to us, because they're like, oh, I'm going to have to look at a new role, but I don't know. And it's that not knowing which is the killer. I think that is what actually really affects people negatively.
Definitely. So where possible, do try and give some information.
Cool. Okay.
So I know we were kind of talking about different kind of mental health. The first one that I just wanted to show was from let me just get to the right one if it switches. So this is from Cigna's 360 Wellbeing Survey. So they do a survey of around, I think it's 11 to 13 countries. So the UAE is within this. And it's just to kind of show to people that yes, other people do feel stressed as well, and it's not something that's just solely something that you experience. So reasons for high stress is finance. That's always number one. Doesn't matter where you do service around the world. Finances is always kind of number one. Usually the second one is kind of work related. So maybe being overworked, too longer hours, as you can see there. So people do kind of feel that way. So you're not alone. That is there. In the UAE alone, 22% of residents face unmanageable levels of stress. So again, that's perceived. So they feel that their stress is unmanageable. People might go, oh, you know, surely they can manage this. But again, it's their perception. So we shouldn't really disagree with that. And what we need to think about is if 22% of residents are feeling this way, that could be 1/5 of your staff. So, you know, are you doing something to make sure that they're not experiencing unmanageable levels of stress, and what is that? Mental well-being, 43% did say that their workplace has a well-being program, but I can't remember if it's on this one. Report always on. That's the always on. I don't think it's on this one, but oh yeah, sorry, it is. It's right next to it. 50% or more say that it doesn't focus on mental well-being. And this is something that I always mention. And I don't know if you saw when I did that presentation at the Nook, John, I don't know whether you did catch that. We say this percentage there as well, where we go, most businesses know how to do well-being when it's physically focused. You know, so we're doing like, maybe not so much anymore, but you know, the marathons, the cycling, fun runs, all sorts of things like that. Loads of it is really good and it's physical. And I'm not detracting from the fact that physical health helps mental health, because of course it does, but it's not the only thing. So what their wellbeing plans don't focus on is, well, how are you tackling emotional and mental wellbeing support? And they don't really know how to do that. And that's where it comes in, what we discussed before about, you know, making sure that people are fully aware of what mental health is, what some of the conditions are, so that they can look for their colleagues and notice some of those signs, you know, long-lasting sadness, high levels of irritability. I know that can be a lot of people, but you know, if it's unusually high, high or low moods is extremely a thing to look out for. Being socially withdrawn and changes to sleep and eating behaviors. They're some of the key signs associated with all mental health conditions. And even if you're looking out for some of those, then that then prompts you to have a conversation. People aren't equipped to have conversations, so they need to be trained to have those right ones. That is how you can start to have a decent wellbeing plan that's focused on mental and emotional states, because employees look out for one another. You don't need to do as much after that. So, and then here's what I talked about briefly earlier, saying how much it costs. So just stress-related illnesses. So this isn't even going into mental health. This is just stress-related illnesses. It costs around nearly $700 million US just in the UAE on the health system.
Just in the UAE?
Just in the UAE. Yeah, it's
that's ridiculous.
1 trillion across the globe.
That's unreal.
Stress, mental health, where, you know, well-being isn't kind of looked at. So 700 short of $700 million US is how much it's costing the UAE's healthcare system. So as a business, if you implement something for a much smaller cost than that, you are going to recuperate return on investment, but not by seeing money coming back into your business, but seeing less go out. So you're not going to have as much insurance costs, because your premiums might reduce because your staff aren't going to hospital as much. The fact that you will have employees that feel more productive because they are less stressed. So you're actually going to get a better work rate out of them than you would normally do. That's not something that you can put ROI on, because I guarantee most businesses aren't tracking their employees' productivity right now. So you don't know how it's improved, because you've got no kind of basis to go off right now. But they're some of the key things, and anyone can download that. So if you go on Cigna's website, it's the 360-degree wellbeing survey, so you can find out loads of information about that. Yeah. So, you know, we've already talked about like how team leaders can be a bit more responsible for mental well-being. Well, this can also kind of support that just by doing some key things. So if we start on the top left there, you know, building trust. Trust is one of the foundations of being a great leader and having a great team. So does everyone in your team know what you expect from them and what they expect from you. And if you haven't had that conversation, then you probably need to address that, and you need to make sure that you kind of realign what those kind of key elements are.
Yeah.
You mentioned before about goals. Yeah, we need to make sure that we've got deliverables, and if they're discussed each and every day, breaking those goals down into smaller manageable tasks means that people feel like they've had more sense of achievement. So again, give that responsibility to your teams to say, all right, this is the goal that we're working towards, this is what the business needs right now, how can we achieve this, and then break that down into manageable tasks. Make sure that people can do those tasks. So again, just going back to what we do every morning is we assess everything that's on our to-do list. And by nature, humans are terrible at estimating time. We've got no grasp of it. Sometimes it feels like forever, sometimes it feels like it flies by. So you can't kind of look at a list and just go, right, oh yeah, this will be done, this will be done, this will be done. Most of the time we find that it's not done by the end of the day. So what we're saying here about managing your workload is, as a team leader, call people out on things and just go, look, is that manageable for you? What I want to make sure that you do is you hit your key goals today. So instead of committing to 5 tasks, can you commit to 3 and make sure that they're done properly, rather than, again, having that stress where you think, oh, I've got 2 more things to do here, I don't know if I'm going to have time. Commit to 3, and then if you've done them and you've got time left, then pick up the 4th. If I was a team leader, I'd much rather have my team completing tasks fully and to the best of their ability, rather than just trying to fire through things as much as they can.
Yeah, and with a quick one on that, again, it doesn't matter what function you're in. Again, you might be thinking at this present time, is my job under a threat within my role at all at the moment? How I need to do everything right now. I need to do. Actually, as a leader, you should be saying, look, clear. If you set those clear goals, look, I need you to deliver on this and this. These other parts can wait till next week. Again, as an employee, you need someone to communicate that to you. And as a leader, you need to make sure that you're communicating that in the right way, because I bet you people are literally thinking like that at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And we're in a bit of a, use my words carefully. It's a bit of a shame that in this part of the world, we're very much governed in a sort of kind of the leader is power kind of thing. So whatever they say, the people in that team feel that that's what they must do. And there's not that much kind of, not negotiation, but the communication is fair and it's both ways. And people feel like they can't push back. And, one of the key things that we talk about in one of our trainings of like managing your workload is the ability to say no. And we're so scared of saying no, because it's got such negative connotations, but it's not. If you don't have the capability to do something, but your manager comes to you and says this needs to be done, again, as a manager, I'd feel much better if my staff came back to me and just goes, look, this is what I've got on today. I'm not going to be able to do that for you. Because then as a manager, it gives me the option to go, okay, I'm giving that person too much. Can I go to someone else? Or, again, is this often done? As a manager, do I need to just pull up my socks and do it myself? Because, I can't delegate this task. So we're unfortunately in this behavior where anyone who is given a task from their manager feels like it must be done, like it has a super level of importance. And most often than not, if you have a conversation with your manager, you'll find that it's not as important as what was initially made out. And you might get a bit of extra time on it. So I want this done by the end of the day. I don't have the functionality because I've got this, this, and this. Which of these 4 things do you want me to drop so that I can do that thing for you? Or can you give me more time? Oh, okay, yeah, you can have it by the end of tomorrow. So it's not necessarily saying no. It's just about pushing back in a fair way. And
yeah,
again,
and it's about building an environment where you have that trust. Well, all of these points here, you've got to create this environment. So it's a two-way street. And again, it's just all comes down, I think, if I'm looking at this, to communication, and creating that environment where everyone can be honest with each other. And I think that's the way to be successful as a business, and at a micro level within the team that you lead.
Definitely. And, even just to focus a tiny bit on that last one, it's just removing barriers for the team where possible. So, who in your team is the best at getting that job done, because, you know, if someone isn't that good at doing a certain task, they may not have the full understanding of how to do it. So it'll take them more time, they'll experience more stress because they're not sure. So there's a number of barriers that they'll face. So can you easily remove them by choosing someone who's more suitable to the task? So again, as a good leader, you should be doing that. So that's a very kind of brief overview of how you can eliminate some of those issues as a leader. And again, like, if you want to know a little bit more, tune into Russell's video on our YouTube channel, Ignite Training, and you'll see a little bit more on that.
Great. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've covered everything, haven't we? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And you know, if people are kind of interested in some of the things that you said, and now we've kind of had little chats about this, John, earlier, and this is a prime opportunity for businesses to invest in their staff. And by investing in your staff, it's going to increase kind of their morale, their motivation. And, you know, some of them might be stuck at home, not doing as much as they can. You know, I know there's going to be people out there that are probably going, I'm still swamped, I've still got loads to do.
Yeah.
But this is a prime opportunity where you can invest in your kind of staff's development while they are at home. And yeah, there's loads of free stuff out there that can be done. But, you know, you also need to think about what are the gaps that you might have, and have you got the time to utilize now to kind of fill those gaps. So we've got a few.
You guys at Ignite, so when you go into a business, again, no matter what size it is, I know you deal with big banks and for instance, what will you go in and do? How do you tailor your approach, and what's the kind of value add, tangible value add?
We've delivered most of these over, you know, a period of time. We tweak them with regards to what's going on in the world, and we know that we're kind of calling out the best bits to get the most out of the learners pathway, to make sure that they get the best out of it, and also that the business sees that the people that return back after the training have a sense of tools and tips that they can use in the future. You know, if you don't implement anything after that, then, you know, like any other training, it might fall by the wayside. It's not going to have the same impact. But, you know, what we've looked to do now with these changing times is make sure that there is kind of a pathway that people can follow. If I just show you one of these as an example. Okay, so this learning journey on stress management, for example, we break things up into like 8 phases. So we have a system called Practify, which is a follow-up tool for learning. So rather than people just attending a learning program and just going away, and if they use the tools, they use them. If they don't, they don't. Practify helps embed it by assigning like workplace activities, assignments. So what we're looking at doing with some of our webinar journeys is it's not just one webinar that are usually between 1 and 2 hours, because I don't know if you're familiar, John, but there's a term being thrown around now called webinar fatigue. So if you're just on a webinar listening to someone, even if it's interactive, we switch off after kind of maximum of like 90 minutes to 120 minutes. We just...
Yeah, definitely. I've been there.
Used to this kind of facilitation of being online, and it's not healthy being on your laptop for that period of time without taking breaks and stuff. So we schedule them between 1 and 2 hours, potentially with a break if it's a little bit longer. But they are hit at different stages. So we send out some pre-learning, we do a webinar, we give them a bit of extra learning that they can do. Maybe it's over a week period. While they do that, we do another webinar, we set them another task. And then towards the end, we actually give them like a post-learning kind of assessment, assignment, whatever, to ensure that that learning is kind of embedded. So because it's over a better period of time, it is more successful to making the learners keep doing those kind of tasks. So with the stress management one, we will give them a few kind of tips, maybe identify, they can look out for that, holding webinars with their colleagues, looking out for signs, what people are saying, and then they can come, how would I deal with that? So they go through a kind of key learning journey to see how that is.
That's awesome.
So it's just something different, and we try and focus on that. We want to make learning stick. And, you know, there are always companies that come back to us and just go, you know, can you just deliver this, just get it all done in one day so it's out of the way? Yeah, we can, but it's not great for the learners because they're constantly on their screens. They're not going to embed that learning, and you're not going to see the return on investment. And that's one of the key things to point out. You know, everyone wants things done fast, but if you want something done properly and you want those kind of behaviors to change, you need to kind of get a little bit more time.
Yeah, and I think right now is a fantastic time to start embedding these anyway, because there is a little bit more time. People can do this remotely, so
Yeah,
it's a great opportunity for business to get in touch with you.
yeah, definitely. And like I know this is a super plug now, but it's all for free. So if people are interested, we've been doing a number of webinars over the last couple of weeks. These are our upcoming ones if people are interested. So we've got negotiation fundamentals. So what are the key points about negotiating in a tough environment, which is perfect for now. And so, you know, you're at home, you're not having that kind of typical face-to-face environment, going to someone's building to have that kind of negotiation. So what's different? Leading in challenging times. So again, might be a good benefit after this call, what we've discussed today. And then we are having a bit of a wellbeing in action. So we've got a few panel experts from some of the companies that we work with who have implemented some decent wellbeing plans. So again, if anyone's interested in seeing what other companies are doing and how they're tackling wellbeing, that might be a good one. And then finally, just to kind of create a bit of fun, we're doing an isolation quiz on the 30th of April. So companies can submit teams into us, and we're just going to do a bit of a social quiz just to kind of get people together. And they're all our free things coming up in the next upcoming weeks.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for today. We've obviously covered so many points, but I guess what will probably happen if people approach you is that you can dig deeper in various areas that they feel are important. But I'll put links to Ignite and yourself and LinkedIn and everything else, so people can access that. But thank you so much for your time today, and it's been really informative.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thanks for the invite. And yeah, it's been nice to get a lot of different things out there. I know we've tackled a good few topics there, but yeah, it's nice to kind of reel it all off. So thanks for the opportunity.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Ben. And yeah, speak to you soon.
Yeah, speak soon.
Cheers.